So welcome to the session on making Google Drive work for you. I am Laurel Marion, Gallia Vinton ESC Technology Consultant, Google Educator Level 1 and 2, Certified Google Trainer, and one of many of the remote edX coaches that are presenting today and next Friday. Feel free to reach out to any of us for more information about the remote edX grant and how that can help you. And then let's look at our agenda for today. So this is going to be a very basic foundational course about our session about making Google Drive work for you. So the basics of storing, sharing, collaborating, and organizing in Google Drive. And then I will be demonstrating these features. If you haven't already, go ahead and put your first and last name with your school district in the chat. We will be saving these chats for purposes of getting your CEU certificates to you and attendance. And then let's look at our to-do list for this session. So we're going to be starting at the very beginning of Google Drive files, searching tips, drive organization, sharing in Google Drive, and then a few Gmail tips. So the session is recorded. If you have questions, put them in the chat. And then one of us will try to answer them for you, or I will take a pause every so often and answer them. On the to-do list, you will kind of see, I did a session earlier at 10 o'clock. A couple of things might be a repeat, just because there are some tips and tricks that I want to share with you in this session as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, what is Google Drive? So Google Drive is an online storage and productivity tool to share, store, collaborate, and organize your files such as documents, spreadsheets, slides, and forms. I consider this kind of like a personal backpack for my files. So how do you access Drive? I always start my day in my email, and then I kind of branch out from there. So when I want to access my Google Drive, I click the apps grid that's upper right, and then I choose the Drive icon. And that brings me to my Google Drive. So if we're looking at Google Drive, over on the left are all of the Drive options, and we'll go through those in this session. And the first thing that we're going to do is look at my Drive, and you can see that in my Drive, I have all kinds of folders, I have all kinds of files. So how is it that you create something in Google Drive? Well, the plus new button is going to be very important to you. So when I click on plus new, here are all of the things that I can create. So I can create a doc, a sheet, a slide, a form, and then drawings, maps, sites, all of the tools that are available for you in the Google Workspace. So if I wanted to create a new document, one of my biggest tips for you in your Drive is always start in the folder that you want the file to be created in. So if I would say I want to create a Google Doc right here, it's going to end up on my main page, and it's going to end up way down here where I really can't see it. So I'm a big proponent of starting in the folder you want the document to be housed in to begin with. So I have a folder particularly for this session. So I went to that folder, and now I'm going to click the plus new button and create a new Google Doc. And the first thing I always want to do in a Google, in any Google app, is to name it. So I'm going to name this workshop. And the reason why that's always the first thing that I do is if you forget, you're going to have tons and tons of files in your Google Drive that are named untitled. So always make that a priority of going ahead and naming that. And you may be sitting there thinking, well, I've got files that I've already created, like in Microsoft Word, and I just want to upload them. I don't want to create something new because I've already got it in Word. So you're going to go back to the folder that you want this new document to be uploaded in, and you're going to use the plus new button again. And this time I'm going to choose File Upload. And that will allow me to browse to my desktop, and I have a dialogue lesson plan that I want to upload into this folder. So the message at the bottom is telling me that it's uploading. Obviously, I used this earlier, so I have two of them now. So I'm just going to leave that there for the moment, and then we'll talk about removing later. So you don't have to just create new documents. If you have documents on your computer that you want to upload, sure, go ahead and use those. One of the things, though, that I do want you to look at to save yourself some time when you're uploading, in your settings, which the settings gear is at the top right, if you go into your Drive settings, there is an option here to convert your uploaded files to a Google Docs editor format. I have that checked, and I would recommend that if you don't, that you do. And here's the reason. When I'm uploading a Microsoft Word file, it will upload that, but it won't open in the Google Docs editor. It will stop and ask you questions about, do you want to open it in the Google Docs editor, or save some time by like automatically converting all of those files to a Google equivalent before you actually upload. And another setting I'd like for you to look at while we're in our Drive settings is the offline setting. So right in here, it is an option to create, open, and edit your recent Google Docs sheets and files on this device while offline. So you may want to sit by the pool, which you don't have internet out by your in your backyard. You may have poor internet. If you make this option checked, enabled, you will be able to work on files offline. So whether you have an internet connection or not. And so what happens when you do that, you'll have, it's under the file, and I'll show you that in a minute. Let me just pull up. Let's look at the workshop document that we just made. So if I wanted to work on this someplace that I didn't have internet, I could go to File and say, make this available offline. So that's a big help to you if you don't have good internet service. All right, so how do you download a file? So maybe we have a Google Doc that we want to put on our desktop, and maybe there's some feature in Word that we want to open it in, or maybe we just want it on our desktop for availability. So when you're ready to download a file, it's under the File menu, and you say File Download, and here's your options. You can download as a Word document, a PDF. You can also download from your actual Drive tiles. So back to this workshop document, I could also right click on it and download from here. When I download from this method, I don't get those options to make it a Word document or a PDF. All right, so how do you search your Google Drive? Searching in Drive can save you a lot of time. If you click in the search box in your Google Drive, you get some options to search by a person, and you get some options to search via the type of document that you're searching for. You also have an advanced search, and your advanced search can be accessed through this button or the icon that's up in the search bar. So when you're looking at an advanced search in Google Drive, you can search by what type it is. And I'm just going to say, I think it's a spreadsheet, by the owner. And so I'm going to choose specific person, and I'm going to put in Thad Haynes. He's another remote edX coach from our Educational Service Center. I have other filters that I can use to narrow down what type of search I want to do in my Drive. So I might have already put it in the trash. I can say, I know that we modified it in the last 7 days. I might not know the title, but I know it has these words in it. So as much as you can filter down when you're doing your search, the better results that you're going to get. And you can always reset those and start a new search. All right, so let's talk about organizing your Drive. How can you organize your Drive? Well, we're going to look at the different views in your Drive, how to rename your folders and files, create, move folders, make them stand out with color coding, numbering, and emojis, starring documents, making copies, and then deleting. So the first thing I want you to look at is your view. So you have a little tiny icon up in the upper right, and when you mouse over, it says List View. And if I would click this, then my documents would be in a list view. So it would look like this. I prefer the grid view. So when I mouse over again, it says grid view. This is my preference, and you know, everybody has their own preference, but I want you to be aware that that is there. So how do you create a folder? That's probably the biggest organizational tip that I can give you, is to folder everything that you have to stay organized. So when you're ready to create a folder, you'll go to the plus new button and say folder. Let's name this workshop. And when I create, you can see that the folder appears in the new folder appears in the actual Making Google Drive folder that I wanted it to. And that's another tip, as well as files. Always start in the folder that you want the new folder or file to be housed. So it saves you moving it. If I want to rename this folder, maybe I wanted it to be January Workshop. So you can right click on any folder or any file and click rename and update those names, those titles. All right, so how do we move things into those folders? Well, there's a couple of options for you to move files or folders. The first one is you can click and drag. So I have a slideshow in this folder that I want to move to the January workshop. So a really easy way is just to click on it and move it up to the January workshop folder. Now notice when I hover over top, it turns blue. So I know that I'm making sure that I'm dropping that file in the right folder. I can also move via a navigational menu. So if I right click on a file, I can say move to, and the navigational menu comes up, and I can go forwards or backwards. I may want to go back to my drive, or I can go to a folder within this folder. So I want this to go in the January workshop, and I will say move here. You can also move within a document. So if we go back to our workshop document, there's a little tiny folder with an arrow at the top next to the title that says move. And if I click on that, it also opens the same navigational menu. So I can move this to the January workshop. And I can also move through the file menu. So I can go to file and say move, and you get that very same menu. So once again, this is a preference. It's what you get used to and what's easier for you, and whether you're working within a document or you're just trying to organize your drive. All right, so I like to color code the drives, the folders that are in my drive. So I like to make them stand out. And I have an example of maybe an elementary teacher's Google Drive where they have teach different subjects, and each subject they've made a folder for to organize in that manner. And I want to color code them. And so I'm a teacher who color codes in my Google Classroom. So for instance, I make all my Bell work one color and all my math work one color. So I want that to coordinate. So to color code your drive folders, you right click and you say change color, and you get a color palette that you can choose from. And you can do that to all of your folders. And you can see on the slide, my example, I have color coded all of them. You can also number your drive folders. So maybe you're a middle school or high school teacher who has periods, period 1, period 2. So numbering them is just the same as renaming. So I would right click and say rename. And I could add the period number in front of that. I also like to add emojis to my drive folders just to make them stand out a little bit. And on the slide, there are some links to websites that you can copy emojis. There's also a Chrome extension called Joy Pixels, and that's the one that I like. So if I go up and open my Joy Pixels in my Chrome extensions, I can search for a bell for my bell work. And then when I click on the bell, it copies it. And then I can rename this folder again, adding the bell emoji by just pasting it in when I rename. All right, so let's talk about starred documents. If you look down the left-hand side of your Google Drive, you have an area called starred. And so this is for documents that you use a lot. They're important to you. I particularly have a couple of things starred for reasons of one of my folders has pictures in it that I need all of the time. And it was a shared with me file. And so the shared with me part of Google Drive is a little confusing. And so I just simply starred it. So if you want to star a folder, you right click and you say, yours would say starred, and I just unstarred that. If you want to star a particular document, you can do it the same way. You can right click on a document and say add to starred. And then when I go to starred, that was our workshop document, it would be easy to find in the starred area. You can also star within a document. So I would just go to File and say, nope, I don't see it. I thought that you could do that, but I might be mistaken. Oh, here it is at the top. It's not in the file menu. It's just next to the title. So you could star that document through here, through within the document, and then it would appear in your starred area of Google Drive. Okay, making copies. So I'm in my starred area, and I want to make a copy of a file. So once again, you can't start in the folder. My tip about starting in the folder where you want it located, if you're making a copy, you cannot do that. You just have to go where the file is that you want to copy. And you can say right click, make a copy. And so reasons that you would want to make a copy. So maybe this workshop document is a template of some sort, and I want to have a copy that's a template, and then I want to make a copy that I can maybe fill in for one of the workshops. And so I thought I hit that, but maybe I didn't. Make a copy. When you make a copy, you can see where the file location is. And so it made a copy in my drive. And so I can right click on that and say move it. And so then I can move it to the folder that we have been working out of for this session. It's in my virtual workshop, Making Google Drive Work for You, and then I can move it there. So what happens though is when I put it in the folder, when it names it, it automatically gives it the name copy of. And so you would have to go in and change the name of that document so that it would remove the copy of title. Another bit of information about copying, you can only copy files. You cannot copy a whole folder. And I'm hoping that that may become a future feature because there's times that I would like to copy a whole folder. All right, and how do you delete a file? A couple of ways. So maybe I want to delete the copy of this workshop. I can right click on that and hit remove. And then maybe I want to get rid of this master schedule that I have made. I can also remove that through within the document by going to File and say Move to Trash. All right, so taking a quick pause, do you have any questions about what we've covered so far? Just basic information. All right, great. So let's just move on. Let's move on to sharing. So we're going to stick with our workshop document. And when you're sharing, you can give the people that you are sharing with different types of access. They can be an editor, a viewer, a commenter. And then I'm also going to show you how to share via email. All right, so why would you even want to share? Well, part of the beauty of Google Drive and Google Tools is that multiple people can collaborate and edit at the same time. And it's in real time. So I'm going to pull in um, a second person that I have in our session today, and we are sharing a document. And this is the document. And if you can see that I've shared, his name is Xander, and I've shared with him. And so we can both work on this at the same time. And a couple of things for you to look at the top, um, you can mouse over each of these icons and you can see who is in your icon. Google also assigns each collaborator a color. So Xander's this hot pink. And then you can see right here, I can tell that this is Xander working in the document because it's the hot pink, and then I can mouse over and it tells me his name. So if Xander's working on this and we're collaborating, I can see, so I can see what Xander's working on. So he's saying we need some notes, we need some donuts, we need some coffee. So Xander and I can collaborate on this document at the same time. So that's the biggest feature of sharing in Google Drive. So when you share with somebody, you have to think about what access rights you want to give them. So when I click on the blue shared button, I have shared this document with two other people, Emma and Xander. And when I share with them, if I click the down arrow, this tells me that what kind of access I can give them. And so if you are an editor and you give someone editing access, that means that they can change anything on your document. They can also change the permissions on it, and they can add people. They can add people and share the document as well. So make sure that's what you want to do when you give somebody editor access. If you are a viewer and a commenter, you can't edit. A commenter can only comment, but you do have features such as the viewer can see the option to download, print, and copy. And here's where you can also transfer ownership. So maybe you are done with this group and off the committee, whatever, you can transfer this document to somebody else. And this is also where you would remove people from the shared document. Also within the sharing, you have permission levels. And so at the bottom where it says get link, it's not as user friendly as I think it should be because it's not really obvious that you should be clicking here. But when you do click here, this is where you can copy the link to share with somebody via email. You can change the permissions to restricted, which means that the only person that can view this is the person that has the link or people. If I choose Gallaudet and ESC, that's my organization. And that means people in my organization could search and view this document. Or anyone with the link means that anybody in the public could get in on Google Drive and search for this particular document. So once again, think about what permission level you want to give to this document. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this link because I want to show you a couple of ways that you can share via email. So one way is to go to your email. I've copied the link here. I can go to my email and I can compose, and I'm going to choose that again. And I'm going to say this is our workshop document in the subject. And I can just paste this link in here and Thad could access that link from his email. That's not my preference because I just think it's not very clean. It doesn't look nice. So one way to clean that up would be to type the words workshop document and then select those words. And at the bottom, use the link icon and paste that same link in and say, okay, that looks a little bit cleaner. So that's an option. And another option to share this document via email is at the bottom. If you click on the Drive icon, insert files using Drive, it will bring up your Drive files. I'm just going to go to recent because I know I've just worked with this. And here is the workshop document, and I can just click on it and say insert. And this one comes up in more like a tile or a chip look. So once again, this is a preference. I don't like the top one. Sometimes I use the second one, but most of the time I just go ahead and say insert from Drive using that icon at the bottom. All right, so let's look at our Drive again, down the left-hand side, and let's look at this shared with me section. So shared with me is kind of confusing. A lot of people look at it and it looks like a mess. It's not organized alphabetically, it's organized chronologically. So you can see earlier this week, these are items that people have shared with me. Last week, it's kind of a messy area. And the confusion about it is you can't organize. And the shared with me isn't a place really to store files. So you can't really make folders for them. So the solution for this is one of two things. You can make a copy for yourself, and we covered that a few slides ago. However, try to remember that if you make a copy for yourself, any collaboration, any editing that you and another person or group of people were doing would end on that copy. So make sure you are finished with that document before you copy it. Or you can create a shortcut so that these files would be available where in a folder or where you think that they would need to be stored. And I will show you how to do that on the next slide. So creating a shortcut. So maybe I've got this Happy Winter Slides from Slides Mania, and I want that to be in more than one folder. So for instance, I might want to use this in my virtual workshop folder. I also might want to use this in like an ELA or a reading file. And so when I click on this, I can say add a shortcut to Drive. So what a shortcut is, it's a pointer to content that can be stored in another folder or drive. And when I click on this, I get that navigational menu, and I'm going to navigate to our virtual workshop folder that we've been working in. And I'm going to go ahead and say add the shortcut there. And so when I go back to that folder, you can see that now we have a shortcut to that Happy Winter Slides Mania that is somebody had shared with me. And I can tell it's a shortcut by looking at this little icon. So if you look at the icon on the Happy Winter slide, you can see that it's got a little arrow on it. That lets me know that it's a shortcut as opposed to this slide, which does not have an arrow. So this is the original document. This is just a link to that document. All right, so another feature of Drive that I like to share is forcing a copy of a document. So you may be working on this workshop document and you may have this all filled out, and another teacher comes in and says, hey, I would like to have a copy of that. I like that. I'd like to have a copy of it. And so you share it with her, you give her editing rights, and then she starts typing on that and editing your document. And you're like, oh, that's not what I wanted. Well, this is a way to avoid that. So if you are going to force a copy of a document, what you want to do is go to the share button, get the link. And what I'm going to do with this link is I'm going to scroll to the very end of it, and I'm looking for the word edit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that word edit and I'm going to replace that with the word copy. And then I'm going to share that link with the teacher. And so if you look at the slide, this is what it should look like. So this is the link that I want to share. I found the word edit. I replaced the word edit with the word copy. Then when that colleague gets the email that says, I've shared this with you, this is what they will see when they click on the link. It will say copy document. Do you want to make a copy? And they're forced to make that copy. So then they've got their own copy and you don't have to worry about them editing your copy. Let's look at our drive again. This is another area that I like to make changes in my drive. It's kind of confusing. So this area right here is called suggested. And what Google has done is they have said, oh, you just worked on this today. You open this often around this time. You open frequently. You open today. I don't like that because people are under the impression that this is where that file is located, and it's really not. So I like to make my drive look a little bit neater. I go to my settings and I scroll down to where it says suggestions. And right now it's checked to show suggested files in my drive and shared files. If I uncheck that, you can watch them disappear up here. So if I enable it, they come back. And if I uncheck, they go away. So to me, that makes that look a little bit neater. And so I like to remove those suggestions. All right, so part of your drive allows you, we'll go back to our workshop document. In documents, sheets, and slides, with a click of one button, you can present to Meet. And so this is a new feature in Drive. The button's next to the share button, it's the up arrow. And when you click on that, you can, within your document, present this document to a virtual meeting. And that is in docs, sheets, and slides. This is also new. It's called Google Drive Approvals. And it is in any files in your Google Drive as well. And so what it is you can request approval on a specific file from one person or multiple people. I kind of thought it would be a good feature. So maybe you've got a newsletter article and you need to get your principal's approval before you put it in. This would be a great use for that. So what you do is you go to File and you choose Approvals, and then a dialog box will open on the right. And so you say make a request. So I'm going to say I'd like for Thad Haynes to approve this. Once again, he's my remote edX colleague. I can type a message that says simply, is this okay? I can give Thad a due date. I can give him a time. And whatever that due date would be, as the due date approaches, he'll receive little reminder emails asking him to please approve this. I can allow him to approve the file, or I can lock it before I send. And then I'm going to actually change this. I don't want to bother Thad today because I think he's training, but I'm going to change this to Xander, and then I'm going to send this request because I want you to see what happens to the document. It gives you the box that says that you have to give them access. And when I send that, if you look at this document in the approvals pane, it now says that the approval is pending. And then if you look at the slide, over here on the slide, the approver is going to see this. So when Xander opens this, he will see that he has the ability to leave comments. So just an easy way to maybe get a principal's approval on something before you send it out. All right, so let's talk about another area of our drive. And this is relatively new. It's called shared drives. And so for my organization, we saw this roll out in August, September. And so shared drives are a great alternative to sharing with me. I know that if any of you have used the shared with me, it gets lost in the shuffle. And a shared drive is a great way to share documents, maybe with a team or a group. And in your shared drives, these are spaces that everybody on the team can share and store common files. And they don't belong to anybody in particular, they belong to the team. And so if you look at my shared drive, it actually creates tiles for each shared drive that I have. And if I want to create a new shared drive, I would click the plus new button. I can name this workshop and create. And you can see that it created, if I go back to my shared drives, it created and automatically shows a design for my workshop shared drive. And when I go in it, now I can start dropping files here, or I can create something new in here, just like I would create something new in a folder. And I can add members. So the down arrow next to your title is where you would manage your members. So I can add members to this shared drive. So I'm going to add Xander. I'm going to add Emma. And when I start adding people, this is where I can give them their level of permission. So do I want them to be a manager like I am, and they would have the same level of managing that I would? They can manage content, people, and settings, and you can have more than one manager, and that's okay. But maybe you just want them to be able to add, edit, move, and delete files, or they can just be a contributor to add and edit files, or they can just be a commenter or a viewer. So you would want to manage those members' permission levels as you are adding them. Also, as you are adding them, you could notify them with this check mark. So that means they'll get an email that says you are now part of this shared drive. And then you can also give them any kind of a message. And then when you send those emails, you now have 3 people when you say manage my members, you now have 3 people in your group. Also through the drop down arrow, you can email all of those members. So it will automatically create an email with the name of the shared drive already appended and the members that are in your shared drive. You can also send a copy to yourself. Back to the drop down, this is also where you can change the theme. So maybe you weren't happy with the picture that Google chose for you. You could rename this to maybe January workshop. And this is also where you can delete any shared drive that you have. So the shared drives have become really popular in my organization, just because they're a lot easier to manage than a shared folder. And here's some common uses for these shared drives. People that are working on the same project, people working for a period of time on a specific event. Then once the event's over, you could delete that drive. You could have a drive for just templates that people can copy and reuse, or your company or organization-wide files that everyone needs access to, such as training files. So if I look at some of my shared drives, we have a staff file for our organization. So it's everyone's pictures, files that they all need. And then we have one that several of us share to promote with our social media. So anything that a group would need to be sharing. We've already gone through this. All right. So some of you might be thinking about using Google Drive, but you still like Microsoft products. So I wanted to kind of give you an idea of the difference between similar products. So Microsoft's version of Google Drive is called OneDrive. My particular organization, we use both. But I like Google Drive better. And my reasoning of that is that ease of sharing. I think the ease of sharing in Google Drive is a lot better. I do feel like at times productivity features in Microsoft products are a little bit better, but then I don't need some of those advanced features a lot of times. So I'm perfectly comfortable using the features in Google products. And a lot of it comes down to your familiarity and your comfort levels and what your district or office uses. But some of it's also affordability. So you have to pay for Microsoft products and OneDrive. And Google Drive, the basic fundamentals are free. You do have to pay somewhat for some of the more advanced features, but you could certainly get by with the free version. All right, so another pause for questions, and I haven't seen any come in on the chat, but if anybody would like to ask a question at this point, I'd be happy to answer. All right, so I'm going to give you a little bit about Gmail, just because that's part of your Google Drive. And some people just hop into their Gmail and they're unaware of some of the little tips that can help you in your Gmail a little bit better. So we'll go to my Gmail. And the first thing that I want to share with you is called snoozing an email. So if I look down through my email, I have an email from Eric Kurtz, and he is an ed tech person that I follow in social media, get his emailed newsletter. So I don't really want to miss this email, but I'm going to get so many emails today I might forget. So I can do what's called snoozing. So over on the right, there's a little clock icon that I can click on, and I can snooze this email until later today, tomorrow, next week, or I can use the calendar picker and pick a date. And I'll get a little notification that says, you snoozed this, would you like to address it now? Another email tip is to use the unsend. So when you're composing an email, and I'll compose to that again, and then you send that email, you normally get a little message that looks like this: the message sent, do you want to undo it? I just didn't want to choose that. Let me just choose Xander again, because that's training. So when I send this, I'm going to get this message down here, and I have so many seconds that I can undo it. So there's times that you send something and you're like, oh crap, I meant to say something else, or I forgot this. So you can quickly hit that undo, but you have to be very quick about it. So I've increased the amount of seconds that my undo, send, or cancellation period is set for. So I went to my settings and I scrolled down just a little bit. It's called undo send. And the default for this cancellation period is 5 seconds. So I've given myself 10, which I found has been pretty good. I don't know that I would want to wait, 30 seconds, but you can increase that cancellation period to give yourself just a little bit more time to undo that send. And then while we're in the settings for your mail, a lot of people ask this question about how do I make my, put my photo in my email other than the avatar that's there. And so that's also in your settings. And if you scroll down, there's an area that says my picture. And so this is where you can change what your profile picture is going to be. And a little bit about that, if you change it in your mail, then it changes across all of your Google Workspace tools. Another email tip that I like to share is changing the subject line in an email reply. That's not what I wanted. So in my mail, I have somebody with me, and I sent myself this meeting agenda. And so if I go to forward this email to somebody else, what happens is that all this messy stuff in here gets in that forwarded email. And so you can easily get rid of that just by selecting it and hit delete. But then when you go to send that, the subject line always has the word forward in it. And so next to the recipient, you can click the down arrow and say edit that subject. And so now I can take that forward word out, and then I can also add whatever else I want in that subject line. I can also schedule send an email. So I'm going to choose Xander again. And I know I'm very guilty of on a Saturday night thinking, oh, I've got to email Xander this, but then do I really want Xander to open it as soon as he gets it? And I know he's got his mail on his phone. So I like to schedule sending emails. And so that option is the down arrow next to the send button. And I can say schedule send, and I have options to send tomorrow morning, afternoon, or yes, Monday morning. That's when I would like to send Xander this message. And so it just resides in my drafts. And then if I need to go in and change that, I can. So you can always find it again. But that's a nice way not to interrupt somebody's weekend. And then here's another trick that I like to use. We've all been in those emails where somebody sends us information and then people hit reply all and they say, thanks, thank you, thanks for the information. If you want to prevent that from happening, one of the things that you can do is send the message to yourself and then blind carbon copy everyone else. So if I blind copy Xander and Emma, when I send this, the only person that they can reply to is me because they don't know who else the email has been sent to. So that's a great way to kind of reduce the number of replies that you're getting if replies aren't necessary. Creating an email list, it's called a label in Google, but if you have groups of people that you regularly send emails to, like your English department or a group of third grade reading, you can create a list or a label, and you do that by going to your apps grid and choosing your contacts. And in your contacts over on the left, you've got some labels. And so you can create a new label. And I'm going to create a label for the English group. And once you have the label, you click save, and then you go to your contacts and you say, yes, I want, let me see if I can find, we'll go to Xander again because I know he's not in my contacts. Maybe I want Connie Bradbury to be in this label group. And so under more actions, I'm going to just check mark English group, and then she becomes a member of that group. And so when I go to my mail to compose, I haven't used this before today. So when I start typing English group, it starts coming up. So when I click on that, this email is going to go to everybody that's included in that group. So that's great for frequently used group emails, and it's called creating a label, but I like to call it a list. That makes more sense to me. And this is just for informational purpose. So in September of 2021, Google Drive and Mail won't have unlimited storage anymore. And so one of the things that you can look at is if you go to your Drive, at the bottom of the left, it tells you right here how much storage that you have used. And if you feel like you're reaching that limit, then you can go into your Drive and just start deleting things that you no longer need. If you're in your mail, one of the things that you can do is use the search, advanced search, and you can click on has attachment because attachments take up a lot of space. And you can search emails that have attachments and decide if you need to get rid of those as well to kind of reduce the amount of space. Once again, pausing for questions. If I'm looking at the chat, I don't see any questions. If anyone wants to jump in with one, I'd be happy to answer. All right, so that will end our session on making Google Drive work for you. I do have some items that I need to put in the chat. One of them is the feedback survey for my ESC. So I'm going to put that in the chat. They like for us to document and get feedback. So that one is for that. That's the first thing I'm putting in the chat. That's also if you are going to need a CEU, that's where I'll get the information for that. And then the attendance form is for the Remote edX group, and that's just for their information. So I will drop that in the chat as well. And then if you want graduate credit information, there is a Google Classroom, and the classroom code is on the slide currently. And if you want more information about the graduate credit, you can hop onto that Google Classroom. All the information is there for that. And I do thank you for attending. If you have any questions or want to reach out, my email is on the slide. The slide deck link and the recording will be in the Google Classroom. If you want to access those. I do have a Calendly link, so as well as all of the other remote ed coaches, we're here to help you. It's free technology assistance. This is my Calendly link, so you can hop on and grab a time where I can assist you or the other remote edX coaches. And if you want more information about the Remote edX project, here is a link for that as well. So again, thank you for attending. Hopefully you'll attend. I think there's another session right after this one, and then next Friday, January 28th as well.